Should I stay or should I go? That's the question we are talking about today. Do you need to stay or go? And that question can sound so dramatic, but sometimes it is the most honest, the most real question that we can ask and that we can dare to ask. And I don't mean just stay or go in a relationship. I mean, stay or go in a business model, or stay and go in a commitment, or stay and go in this season, or stay or go in the way that you have been living your life up to now. And that's scary sometimes because most of us don't actually want to blow up our lives. And yet, that is exactly what we will do if we are not intentional at this stage, if we get impulsive. And there's a real reason why we get impulsive. So, first of all, I forgot to shut off my notifications, and that is gonna distract me, so give me a second, y'all. Do not disturb for now. Okay, so first of all, let's just take the time to remember that this video is here for whenever you need it for your life. And secondly, let us commit that whatever we decide, we are going to have a great life. And that takes a little bit of faith, doesn't it? So, I am going to talk in this video about the three obstacles that keep us from making the decision. But let's remember this, we don't want to blow up our lives, we don't want to be reckless. We also don't want to abandon our values. And we don't want to confuse discomfort with direction. I could say a lot about that, but I might come back to it. Ask any questions you want in the chat as we go along, and I will be glad to address them if it doesn't seem clear, or if you're like, wait, what did you mean by that? But we also don't want to keep tolerating resentment and calling it responsibility. And I see this over and over again. People think I this is the responsible choice, but they feel resentment. That is an option. That is actually a way we're living that we don't have to live. And if there's anything, I want you to be able to know that resentment is optional. I also want you to know that time exhaustion is optional, as in sometimes we are exhausted because we're the stage in life we are going through is entirely very, very hard. I remember, and this is gonna sound like a stupid example, but I remember putting up hay as a teenager in the hot summer, and, your arms are getting scratched because you didn't think to wear long sleeves because you thought it'd be better to wear sleeveless. And you're getting burned and you're getting scratched, and you're doing this incredibly hard job, and the only comfort that I could give myself in that moment was, "This will end." And sometimes when we're in the exhaustion, we need to know for sure this will end. Because if we don't know that this is it will end, that is when we get impulsive and we blow it up. Okay. So, but we also don't want to keep on tolerating a life that's harder than it needs to be. So today I want to talk about how to love your life again without blowing it up. And the reason this matters is because becoming time rich is not actually about having more time. Becoming time rich as a philosophy, as an understanding, and this is what I learned growing up on a farm in the Midwest where life was incredibly hard. So I this started forming my philosophy very, very early. And this philosophy is what changed my life. This one belief that this is possible, becoming time rich means either doing what you love and or loving what you do. That's the simplest definition. It does not mean having an empty calendar or quitting everything and it does not even mean chasing pleasure. My my definition of becoming time rich, I learned from my dad when he told me one time. He said, I remember driving up to work and this heaviness descending on me because I thought, is this what I am going to have to do for the next 30 years to provide for my family? And then he shared something with me that changed everything. He thought, I can resent it or I can remember I'm doing it because I love my family. So, doing what you love or loving what you do and the reasons why you do it, for the reasons why you do it. That is the simplest definition. It is not chasing pleasure and it's not pretending that life should be easy all the time because it shouldn't be. We wouldn't even like it if it were. But time rich means that your time, your energy, your relationships, your money, and your success are increasingly aligned with the life you actually want to live. And that means two things matter: what I do and how I relate to what I do. Because sometimes the answer is, I do need to change what I'm doing. And sometimes the answer is, I need to change how I'm seeing what I'm doing. But either way, and this is the promise I want you to make to yourself, I will not settle for a life that I secretly resent. That's the commitment. And to make that commitment, that's going to require telling the truth. Ask yourself this question: am I staying because of my values or am I staying out of fear? What can I change and what must I accept? And what is it that this pain that I am in right now is trying to teach me? Because this is what I tell, this is what I've learned myself, this is what I've told my clients. The pain is not the problem, the pain is the signal. The pain is there. When somebody says, why does this hurt so much? Why is this so hard? Why am I in so much pain? And I'm going to say it honestly, because sometimes to the most responsible of us, to the most committed of us, when we are like, I am not a quitter. I will not quit. I can do the hard things. Well, the pain is there to teach us the lessons that only the pain can teach. There have been times in my life when I literally would not change until the pain itself became intolerable. Now, the danger in waiting that long is this: when it becomes intolerable, sometimes we become impulsive instead of intentional. I want you to watch for that moment. That is when you need to take a beat and you need to be willing to ask the tough questions. So, and that's why we come to, what are the obstacles to creating and living a time rich life? And how to know whether you need to stay, you need to go, or you need to simply stop sleepwalking through a life that you have never consciously chose. That's what the pain is trying to wake you up to. Okay? So don't hate the pain, hear the pain. So the first obstacle, I'm going to give you three today. The first obstacle is not actually knowing what you love. I know this sounds ridiculous until you realize that how many of us are too busy to ask, or how many of us have been raised in a system that taught us it's not important to even ask that question. I was raised I am a Christian. I am an outspoken Christian, but I am not a Christian that says becoming a Christian solved all my problems. I am a Christian who says that knowing God has opened me up to being willing to solve my problems, being willing to go to the source, being willing to believe there is something better in my future that can be brought into my today, and to ask questions that I would not have been willing to ask otherwise. I would have outsourced my answer to society or even to my church or to what other people wanted in my life. Committing my life to God gave me the courage to live my real life here on earth. So, the first obstacle is not knowing what you love. And there are a lot of people who believe a lot like I believe. They call themselves Christians, just like I believe, but who secretly believe that what they want and what they love is irrelevant. They've been taught that their life is something that should be sacrificed for the greater good. They're living into the Star Trek philosophy of life of um, the needs of the many are greater than the needs of the few or of the one. It is a philosophy, okay? It's a philosophy that we're signing up to. So we keep on managing, maintaining, reacting, and producing and serving and showing up and being useful and keeping things moving. And we stay busy because as long as we are busy, we don't have to sit still long enough to ask the obvious question. What do I actually want? What do I actually love? And maybe even more honestly, what would I love if I weren't afraid of the answer? We are afraid to get quiet because we are afraid that the answer might reveal something that we are then afraid to choose. This is why I think it's so helpful to have a coach walking through this process. I've walked many people through this process. And because it helps to have somebody sitting beside you saying, even if you don't choose it, it is so helpful to admit that you wanted it, even if you're afraid to choose it. Okay? Because, oh, that's the part we don't always want to admit. Sometimes we don't know what we love because we haven't listened. We've felt safer staying busy, doing everything that everybody has expected of us. And sometimes we haven't listened because we're afraid of what might come up. What if I sit still and realize that I actually am angry? Or if I realize I'm bored or I'm tired? What if I realize something I've been called responsibility or commitment or devotion is or discipline is actually fear. Like I am afraid to change. I'm afraid of what other people will say. I'm afraid people will call me a failure. I'm afraid I'll call me a failure. I'm afraid I can't live with the option of calling myself a quitter in something that I've wanted for so, so very long. What if I realize that the life I built is not the one I actually want to keep living? And so, because we're afraid of the answer, we stay busy, and busy becomes the hiding place. But becoming time rich is requires enough honesty to ask, what do I love? What would I love to do? And what do I already do that I could learn to love again? What parts of my life is actually aligned and what part only works because I keep ignoring it? All right. So the first one is actually not knowing what we love. And there's a many reasons, like I said, that we can not be aware of what we love. But basically boils down to we're afraid of the answer. And we're afraid of what might come up. It really is hard to sit with ourselves. I do meditation um, a couple times a week, just sitting there, seeing what comes up. And But the longer I do it, the more I do it, the more that I realize I'm okay with the anxiety that comes up. Because in the pain, in the anxiety, in the discomfort is the truth. And if we're not living a life that is aligned with our highest values, and I could say a lot about having our spoken values and our true values. Um, but maybe that's a video for another day. Tell me if you'd like it in the comments. But so many times, the benefit of somebody sitting down with a coach or a counselor is that finally, for the first time in their life, they get listened to. Now, there's two options here. You can listen to yourself or you can ask somebody, pay somebody, invite somebody. The reason I say pay is because sometimes if we ask somebody that loves us, the person that loves us is as nervous as we are about us changing our life. And when you hire a coach, you're kind of hiring a neutral party to like listen to me and reflect back to me. Anytime I have been struggling in this area, I hire somebody to because I know exactly who I go to. I've got a couple of them actually. Like, I need you to hear me and I need you to listen to me. I need you to repeat back to me what you hear me saying. And I'm just going to blurb it all out because I know underneath all this mixed upness, I'm struggling to hear myself literally think, okay? So you can do it for yourself or you can do it with a person. But make sure if you choose another person that you're choosing a person that is equipped to hear you without bringing their fears into the situation, okay? All right. So, obstacle number 1 is you don't know what you love, okay? You need to listen. But the second obstacle to creating a time-rich life, doing what you love and loving what you do, and or loving what you do, is not giving yourself permission to change. So, this is where this boils down to literally that serenity prayer that we've all heard before. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It sounds like it's cute, but it's actually all of life because both lies are dangerous. I can control everything is an absolute lie. It is not true that I can control everything. But so is the lie that I am helpless to change. There is nothing I can change. Some things, some outer circumstances truly cannot be changed. There are injustices in the world. There are real limits, real losses, real prisons that people did not choose. I am reminded of the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph did not choose the pit. Joseph did not choose to be falsely accused and thrown into prison. Joseph did not choose to be forgotten in prison and stay there for longer than it seemed like he had to. Those were things he could not change. But Joseph did choose who he became while he was in those situations. Joseph could not change the prison, but he could choose who he became inside the prison. He did not abandon himself. He did not abandon his values. He did not sit in that prison that was obviously unjust and say, I must have deserved this for some reason. But he did not abandon his values of service and of um, sharing his perception and wisdom and discernment with others. He had a discernment of dreams that he kept on practicing. He'd been practicing as a child, kept on doing it in the prison. And he did not abandon his belief in God. And I think that that matters because sometimes freedom internally is going to show up before it shows up externally. I remember I had a job that I was thinking about quitting. The job was awful. Actually, I wasn't thinking about quitting it. I because I wasn't a quitter. I was so tied to the identity of a quitter that I was sticking out at the job and I was literally miserable. I mean, it was awful. And to be honest, the job wasn't great. It really wasn't. In fact, I found out later, I stuck out that position longer than anybody else had. And that speaks to my determination. No, it doesn't. It speaks to my stubbornness, okay? But there was a point when I sat down with my sister, the therapist, and she didn't listen to me as a sister. She listened to me as a therapist. I heard myself say, I don't want to be a quitter. And she pointed out that it was my fear of quitting that was keeping me from finding a better way. And that's why I want to speak about values versus fear. See, we can stay somewhere. Oh, actually, I'm going to save that until the third point, okay? But hang on, okay? So the honesty is this something I can change or is it something I absolutely can't change? And I am going to um, find serenity in a circumstance I can't change. Do I need courage or do I need serenity? Okay. Do I need courage or do I need peace? All right. So it's not about time rich is not about pretending I can control everything. And it's also not about pretending that I can control nothing. But it is about refusing to allow resentment to become the designer, the architect of my life. I refuse to be resentful in this situation. I will find a way to love it or leave it. Or but this is the crazy thing. If you find a way to love it, you'll also find a way to leave it sooner. It's I've seen it repeat over and over and over again. While we're in the resentment, we are arguing with the reality and we're making it harder on ourselves. But if we can say, hey, I am here for a reason, even if I'm not willing to leave it yet, I am here for a reason. That is when we're going to tap back into our values instead of our fear. Okay, so it's about telling the truth. What can I change? What can I not change? And what wisdom do I need to know the difference? And that brings us to the third obstacle, which is tolerating instead of loving. This is where the loving what you do matters. We tolerate things instead of loving it. And this comes back to the example of my dad. He didn't say, I have to do, he didn't keep on telling himself every morning, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. He decided to tap into his reasons for his 30-year commitment. That is a profound commitment. I have heard people saying, no matter how hard this marriage is, I've decided I'm committed to it until my children graduate high school because I want to give them this. But I've also seen them say the exact same, heard other people say the exact same thing. I'm afraid to leave because of what everybody will say, but I'm also going to love myself enough and love my children enough to do what is the loving option. And sometimes the loving option is not to stay in the situation, it's to bravely face the unknown. Too many times we are tolerating something out of fear. So we're tolerating it by staying out of fear or we're blowing it up because the pain gets so great that we're afraid that we can't handle anymore. So we blow it up. When the wise choice is to say, what are my values here? Can I reconnect to my values in this? Loving what you do does not mean pretending. Does not this is not false positivity of, it's great. I, can't complain. We can always complain. Sometimes complaining actually helps. Sometimes complaining is the only fun that we get out of it. My daughter works at Starbucks And sometimes the only great thing about her day is collecting these stories and telling them and pointing out the absurdities of life and telling a great story. And some people would say, "Oh, you shouldn't complain." And I'm like, "No, complain, just make it a comedy, okay? Like, make it fun, make it a payoff, make it." I don't know if anybody else talks about this, but sometimes one of the most beautiful things that we can do about our pain is laugh about it. I have a best friend where we hold space for each other, and one of the ways we hold space for each other is by laughing about the absurdities of life. So that is an option, okay? Laugh. Laughter, it's the best medicine. It does, but it also does not mean enforcing yourself to enjoy something that is slowly draining the life out of you. It does not mean slapping gratitude onto grief, okay? My love, my value for truth means I will admit that I am deeply sad about this. I am not going to say I should be thankful. I'm going to say, no, I am grieving. And I have found that the more honest I am about what I am actually feeling, the more I can see what's real and see what I am um, keeping on that's not real. Okay. So, or delaying the inevitable. Okay. So, this does not mean calling resentment responsibility. Loving what you do means this: I will find a way to love this, or I will love myself by leaving it, but I will settle for no less. I will find a way to love this, or I will love myself by leaving it, but I will settle for no less. So when I was at that job, I finally decided, okay, I'm not going to leave this job until I love it, because then I will trust that I left it on my own terms. And the way that I learned to love it was the challenges were still there, but I was also going to become a coach. And so that meant that I could use all my tools of coaching on myself every time that it was awful. And it was awful a lot. I use that as a practice to change my perspective, to see, how is this benefiting me? How is this changing me? How is this helping me? The answer was that in 6 weeks, I got enough practice to literally pass master coach training. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable the amount of practice that I got at that job, because there were so many things that I hated that presented myself that I'm like, but how can I see the benefit in this? How can I see the benefit? That is, I promise you, that is not toxic positivity. That is learning to have a broader perspective, to see things from multiple sides of an issue, multiple facets. And I became so good at it that I could see multiple perspectives, offer multiple perspectives, and see how that changed me from resentment to love or compassion or to grit or to patience. But there became a day when it was really, really, everything's a lot better. I mean, like, literally, I am tolerating the hard with so much greater ease. And I'm so proud of myself for doing that. And it also became I don't need this anymore. This has given me all the reps that I needed for this stage of my life. Do you see that in the situation that I didn't love, I set up the challenge for myself and then gave myself, I'm like, oh, I assigned myself, I won this challenge and now I'm leaving this challenge. And it can be just like that. Love what you do, love it because it backs up your values. Like my dad, it backs up his values of providing a good, um, security for his family, or it backs up his values of being a committed father and husband. It backed up his values of putting aside for his future dreams, which he did get to enjoy. He does get to enjoy today. It's a beautiful thing. But, or leave because it backs up your values of, I love myself enough to face the unknown. I love myself to explore other options. I love myself even to open up my future, even if I hate the uncertainty it might bring in the short term. So, this is the standard. I will find a way to love this, or I love myself enough to leave it, but I will settle for no less than loving myself in and through and beyond this situation by tying myself to my values. That's the standard. It's not drama, it's not impulsiveness when it's done that way. And it will not be you blowing up your life because the pain got too great. Look, the pain is a wake up call to your life. Maybe this is hard, but maybe it matters. Maybe I stay because staying is rooted in my values. If I stay, I want to know why and I want to have my back all the way through it. Maybe I am choosing my values over my preferences, and I love what that says about me as a person. And if that's true, then I can love the part of me that's choosing the values over the preferences. I can honor her. I can say, this is hard. I love you because you are doing the hard thing. It is not hard. I mean, it is not easy. You chose the hard and you deserve the credit and all the gold stars. And maybe nobody else will. This is important. Maybe nobody else will appreciate you the way that you need to be appreciating you for doing the hard. Maybe nobody else will even know how hard it is for you to either stay in this situation or leave this situation. But I want you to understand doing what you love or loving what you do, the loving what you do is loving you while you're in the doing of it. It's you reminding yourself over and over again, I'm choosing this option because of these reasons. And when I am tempted to beat myself up because it doesn't look like it's working out or working out in the way that I wanted it to, I'm going to remind myself that I chose it out of love. Whether I stayed or whether I go, whether I remain or whether I go, I chose it for a loving reason because it's connected to my values, because it was connected to my love of myself rather than my fear of what other people would say about myself. Excuse me. Or my fear about what I would say to myself. So, and maybe I'm staying because I'm afraid. Maybe I've been here. Maybe I'm staying because that feels safer right now. Maybe the pain is not sufficient enough to motivate me yet. But I can tell the truth of that. I am afraid to change right now. But that is so different than saying I have no choice. Because I have no choice keeps me powerless. I am afraid to change right now is the courage to admit the truth to ourselves. And that is the courage to change. You just changed something in that moment. You changed how you saw the situation. Now you can work with that. Now I can work with that. Now I can love the scared part of me. And now maybe I won't let her drive the car for forever in this option. But I won't relegate her to the trunk either. I'll put her in the back seat. I will keep on listening to her. Hey, listen, I know we're staying because you're afraid, but maybe you won't be afraid next week, next month. Maybe if you're just okay, maybe if we just keep on listening to each other and looking for a better opportunity, we'll see it. We'll see the next piece, the next key, the next step, the next tool. That's where I was. I was really afraid to quit that job because I was afraid of what it would say about me. April's a quitter. April can't stick to things. April changes all the time. April will never achieve um, significance in her life if she's always changing. There are a lot of us who have gone through many, many career iterations, and we either see that as a detriment to our life or we see it as a positive aspect of I I am learning new things and I'm driven to new things. At that stage of my life, I was seeing it as a complete detriment and beating myself up over it. Now I see myself as an explorer and the person who's willing to go first and the person who learns lessons and then shares them with others on a YouTube channel of all places. It's the same trait. I just see it in a different light. But I got to there because I was willing to admit, hey, maybe I'm staying here only because I'm afraid, and maybe that's not a good enough reason to stay. What would be the loving reason? And as I love myself through that, I also gave like when I had the courage to start being more honest with myself, that grew my courage. And that got me stronger for the next step, a little bit more courage for the next step, and a little more courage. It's a beautiful thing. Okay. So, this commitment, I will love what I do, or I will do what I love, or I will love what I do, love why I'm doing it. That is, and sometimes the loving is because I'm loving the fearful part of me that just doesn't want to change this right now. That's where I was many, many times. That's where I've been many, many times. So, that scared part of you is trying to protect you, and you need to love that part of you, okay? That will give her more courage. And that distinctions matter. So, this is what I want you to hear. Values can lead, and fear can be heard, but fear does not get to become the designer, the architect of my whole life. And that is why the pain matters. Because pain helps me tell the difference. Sometimes the pain is telling me this is still aligned, but you need to stop resenting the cost of what you are choosing. You need to reattach to your values. You are choosing this. Do you don't make it harder on yourself by resenting it. Remind yourself that you are doing very, very hard things for a season because you see them as attached to your values and the the better option in your life right now. You really do see this as the better option to honor your values. Resentment blocks that. There is no benefit into the resentment. But sometimes the pain tells us this is no longer values, this is actual fear. Either way, the pain is information. The pain is not the problem, the pain is the signal. And the pain is there to teach us the lessons that only the pain can teach, which, that's inconvenient. I would prefer to learn all my lessons through, gentle reflection and a pen. This is also why I recommend, like I said, working with a coach to notice when are we making it harder on ourselves than it needs to be. But some of us are so stubborn that if it weren't painful, we would never change. We would never question our lives without a painful reminder that gets louder and louder until it says, hey, you are done tolerating. You are so done tolerating this. Okay. Every time my life got better, it was because I finally listened to the pain. Pretty good about ignoring it, shoving it down, even as a coach, ignoring it, shoving it down. And the pain wasn't trying to punish me, but it was trying to tell me something. It was trying to get me to be more truthful. So, this is not sustained. This is not aligned. This is costing too much. This needs your attention. Once I learned the lesson, then the pain redeems itself. It's really, and again, a lot of my viewpoint, a lot of my perspective comes out of my Christian faith of I believe it is the goodness of God that leads us to repentance. I do not see God as a judge and as a harsh taskmaster anymore. I used to. I used to stay in a lot of things because I feared it, because I feared God. But I see God as a loving father who who His will and his purpose for my life in the world is so perfectly, beautifully aligned with what is best for me that the pain always turns from ashes into beauty. There's a beautiful promise. My future is always going to be better and brighter. And I always get to realign with that higher path. All right. So let's get to the practical application. Becoming time rich is not asking, how do I get more done? So often that's just the wrong question. The better questions are, what do I love? What do I want to learn to love? What can I change? Like literally, what can I change? What must I accept? Why am I accepting it? What must I accept? What am I accepting for now out of love versus what am I tolerating out of fear? What is this pain trying to show me? Am I staying here because of my values or am I staying here because of fear? What would be the most loving what would the most loving version of myself do here? What is the next kind, honest step? Because time rich is not actually about having more time. It's about enjoying the time that you are already having, as in having more of yourself available for the life that you're called to live. It's not about living unconsciously, resentfully, but choosing consciously, intentionally. If I stay, I want to stay awake, aware, aligned with my values. And if I leave, I want to leave in love, aware, intentionally aligned with my values. But what I will not do is sleepwalk through resentment and call it responsibility. I will not sleepwalk through my life. I will not sign up. I will not succumb to resentment and get a tiny, tiny little rewarding payoff by being the biggest victim in the situation. That is, if you've stayed for this long, that's the thing that I want you to hear the most. This, so much of society, so much of the world, so even so much of um, sometimes the message in the church keeps on reinforcing the notion that victim, there's the biggest victim gets the most sympathy. And sometimes we are settling for sympathy instead of alignment. Let me say that again. Sometimes we are settling for other people's sympathy rather than choosing to be in alignment. The church calls it a martyr, the world calls it a victim. There are true circumstances where we are an actual victim. I am not diminishing that that is an actual reality. But the danger is in settling for sympathy for our situation instead of praying the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Oh, that's everything. And you deserve the wisdom to know the difference, the the chance. You deserve to do what you love or love what you do for the reasons that you're doing it. All right. So, to tie it all up, Becoming time rich means doing what you love and or loving what you do. And loving what you do means I will find a way to love this or I will love myself enough to change it, to leave it. But I will settle for no less. This is not about seeking pleasure. This is about staying true to our values. And it's not about making values a reason for our misery. It's about telling the truth. It's about listening earlier. It's about letting the pain teach us the lessons that it's trying to teach us. It's about choosing our life consciously, intentionally, even if we choose to stay in the hard. We are deciding, I love this. I chose this. I will choose to love it. I will choose to tie it to my values. I will choose to live above the survival of it. That is what I mean by becoming time rich. That's what I want for you. If you have a strong feeling in your life that you need a reset, then go to aprilbragg.com/reset. I think that's the I will put it in the comments, the actual link. I just all of a sudden blanked out on it. I've been talking about doing a time rich business reset, but this is, I'm going to walk it through from either a business perspective or a life perspective. So don't allow yourself to be confused if it still says business when you click on that link. Okay. But maybe it's time for a reset because you deserve to love your life. You deserve to know with confidence whether you should stay or whether you should go. Oh, and one more thing. You might find the 1 minute decision filter helpful on this. It asks three powerful questions. It gives you a gut check, a reality check, and a future check. So go to aprilbragg.com/decide if that sounds like that's what you need for the situation. Otherwise, I will see you here next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel, 11 a.m. Central, and we will talk about another topic that is aligned with a time rich life. Bye bye.